keynote address for this evening. And this address is going to primarily focus on the future of two-wheelers. And to reflect more on that topic, I will be calling upon stage Mr. Hemal and Thakkar, Director, CRISIL Limited. He will be presenting his keynote address as we just make way for him and remove these chairs. Mr. Hemal, as you all are aware, has over 14 years of experience in the automotive and logistics segment. He currently leads CRISIL's customized research business for automotive and logistics practice. And in his role, he oversees a diverse 14-member team who are responsible for CRISIL's diverse offerings in the customized research segment, spreading across several areas like demand forecasting, market opportunity assessment, competitive benchmarking, to just name a few of them. He also plays a leading role in CRISIL's franchise initiatives and represents CRISIL in various industry forums as well. So we have the right man amongst us. Please put your hands together for Mr. Hemal and Thakkar, who's going to talk about the future of two-wheelers. Sir, can I please invite you on stage?
Good evening, all of you, and thank you for having me here. And I would like to congratulate FADA for this first conclave. The area that I'm going to focus on is electric mobility, specifically with respect to two-wheelers. If you actually see what I've put out here, in case of two-wheelers, in the current year, we've already seen almost 2% penetration in terms of sales. Now, these are sales which are largely reported by Vahan. The actual numbers may be higher than this, and these are only high-speed two-wheelers. So the actual retails could be in the tune of about 2,70,000 for high-speed two-wheelers. And if you look at the overall industry, it will be 3,80,000, including low-speed two-wheelers. So high-speed two-wheelers as a proportion of total sales this year has been almost 70%. In case of three-wheelers, we've almost touched 5%. But what is important is this three-wheelers include the top 10 districts contributed to almost 45 to 50% of each. Only your auto and cargo vehicles. It does not include your auto and cargo vehicles. It does not include your e-rickshaws. If you include that, the number is really much higher. In case of passenger vehicles, it's closer to 0.7%, and in case of buses, it's almost closer to 4%. What is very interesting is, and especially even from a dealership perspective, is if you see last year, the top 10 districts contributed to almost 45 to 50% of e-two-wheeler sales. But in this year, if you see, their contribution has come down to about 15 to 20%. Now, this also gives a sense that the way and the pace at which the EV two-wheeler industry is spreading across the country. So today, the top 10 districts are accounting only for about 15 to 20% of two-wheeler registrations, while the remaining country is accounting for the rest. Also, if you see, what is clearly visible is you have something like Bangalore Urban, which is the startup capital of India, and which adopts to newer technologies much more faster as compared to other locations. You see them at the top, followed by Pune, Delhi, Surat. What is clearly visible is certain progressive states, which have come up with demand incentives, which are over and above the FAME incentive that has been announced by the government of India, are actually seeing faster adoption in comparison to other states in India. And you can clearly see that in the picture here. Now, what is also very important is, if you actually look at the total cost of ownership. So on the left-hand side, you have for the current year, and on the right-hand side, you have for 2026, that is a couple of years down the line. If you look at the scenario with respect to the current scenario, where you are getting a subsidy of almost 15,000 rupees per kilowatt hour of battery, even for a 6,000 kilometer running, EV is cheaper by about 22% in terms of total cost of ownership, with a holding period of about 3 years. Same in case of in 2026, it will be cheaper by about 6% even without subsidy. Now, today the subsidy is applicable only till fiscal 24, because post fiscal 24, it's not known whether FAME 2 would continue. Also, what is extremely critical is, we feel that probably the volumes that have been allocated under FAME 2 for 10 lakh two-wheelers will get subsumed much before the end of fiscal 24. So from that perspective, the continuance of this subsidy is going to be low, but anyways, without subsidy, with a running of 6,000 odd kilometers, two-wheelers are going to be more attractive from an EV perspective in comparison to an ICE perspective. Sorry. Now, what is also extremely important is, today there are several things, which are clouding the minds of people. If you actually see, we've put down challenges in 3 parts: demand side challenges, supply side challenges, and ecosystem challenges. If you actually see, in case of demand side challenges, resale uncertainty and service uncertainty is the biggest challenge that the customer is today facing, the financer is facing, and they are building it in terms of their risk appetite. And that is the reason you see that when there is funding of EV two-wheelers or even three-wheelers, the rate of interest is really high in comparison to an ICE vehicle. The LTVs are lower and the tenors are lower, which means the customer has to pay almost 50% more EMI in comparison to what they pay for an ICE vehicle, despite which we are seeing increased adoption of two-wheelers in the EV space. Similarly, when you look at supply side challenges, service network development, financing uncertainty I spoke about. And in case of ecosystem challenges, there are some states like Delhi. We heard from the Honorable Minister that there are more than 1,000 chargers which have been installed in Delhi. Several other states are taking up this opportunity and are providing subsidies for setting up charging infrastructure. And we are actually seeing this spread evenly across many districts in the country. But what is important is, when you look at e-two-wheelers or largely scooters, which are today there in the electric vehicle space, barring say Revolt and Kratos, which is now being launched on the motorcycle front, you actually see that the radii of running or the daily running is really lower. So even if you get a true range of about 70 kilometers or 80 kilometers when you ride your e-two-wheeler, it suffices you for 2 to 3 days. So from that perspective, range anxiety is slowly, gradually, kind of going down or going away in a way, and probably battery swapping is something which will currently be a challenge till the time there is much more clarity on things like interoperability, which may probably get addressed through the policy that the government of India is coming up with. They've already put out a draft. Things like resale ecosystem, which does not exist. Most of the two-wheeler OEMs today have also got into the pre-owned two-wheeler business, which also brings in a lot of loyalty, and it also gives an assurance to the customer that there is a price at which they will be in a position to sell their two-wheelers. There is no resale price established for e-two-wheelers at this point of time, which is a big question, and hence financing community also staying aloof from this particular segment at this point of time. What we feel is, by 2026, probably most of these challenges with respect to two-wheelers will get addressed. And from that perspective, we feel that the penetration of two-wheelers by 2026 would increase at a reasonable pace. Now, if you actually see what is an offering for the community that has come out here, there are several things, where the dealership community itself could participate. If the sales of two-wheelers are going to increase, the park of two-wheelers is going to increase, you will need increased charging infrastructure. Dealerships can get into a space where they could set up charging stations outside or in the vicinity of their own dealerships, which could give them an additional source of revenue in comparison to what they are earning today. Second, they could get into things like mobility as a service or battery as a service, because they would have space at their disposal with respect to the dealerships that they have set up. So these are a few areas, where you could get into. Micro mobility is something where, we've already seen a few people get into, not from the dealership side, but this also offers opportunity, because at this point of time you could be slow in terms of starting, but then could scale up, and the quantum investment required initially would not be very high, because you would have to get hold of a customer, probably who would be engaged with you for a little long term, which will help you to service that customer and also ensure that you scale this business model over a period of time. Basis our assessment, we see that this number will reach somewhere close to about 15% of overall sales by fiscal 26, which means we will see almost an industry of about 2 million units by the end of fiscal 26 with respect to electric two-wheeler sales, which is a significant number. Now, if I translate this into opportunity size, you would actually see that this will lead to an opportunity of about 65,000 crores, both for OEMs and component manufacturers put together. For financiers, there is going to be a loss of 32,500 crores in terms of disbursements if they do not focus on this particular industry. So it's going to be extremely critical that financiers focus on it, extend the same terms and conditions. Every new technology will face certain teething issues. We have seen that, and I'm sure this will go away soon, in the next couple of days. Niti Aayog is also working very closely on this front. They have proposed the Government of India to include electric vehicle financing under priority sector lending. I'm sure apart from this, there are several other steps which are taken by Niti Aayog which will lead to reduction in cost of ownership for electric vehicle two-wheelers. Another point which I probably missed during the presentation is the production linked incentive scheme that the Government of India has come up with respect to advanced chemistry cell as well as with respect to auto and auto components. As per our assessment, this will lead to a reduction in cost of about 8 to 12% at the end of the OEM. So from that perspective, we could see another 12% reduction in prices which will be passed through to the end customer. Last, if you look at the opportunity from an insurance perspective, it's to the extent of 5,000 crores. And shared mobility, we expect that the opportunity is going to be to the extent of 20,000 crores. That's it from my side. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take it up. Thank you. Sure.
Although we are running short on time, but I think a gentleman wants a quick question with Mr. Thakkar, so we'll include that.
Yeah, hi Mr. Thakkar. I'm Arvind Shorewala from Noida. सर मैंने आपका ये प्रेजेंटेशन देखा, उसमें आपने 3 साल का ओनरशिप पीरियड लिया है, पर अब जनरली देखा जाए तो ओनरशिप पीरियड थोड़ा बढ़ा है 4 से 5 साल का। अब 3 साल तक तो वो वारंटी देते हैं ईवी वाले, तो आप उसका 4 से 5 साल लीजिए, क्योंकि 4 साल और 5 साल जहाँ आप लेते हैं तो ओनरशिप कॉस्ट उसकी बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ जाती है, क्योंकि 3 साल के बाद जब उसको 65,000 रुपये की बैटरी लगानी पड़ती है तब ओनरशिप कॉस्ट कितनी आएगी वो आप जोड़िए, तो फिर आप आइस इंजन से उसकी कंपैरिजन कीजिए कि आप कहाँ पर हैं। अभी तो आप 3 साल का दे दिया, 3 साल में ही हो गया, और फिर 5वें साल में जब वो 0 हो जाती है तो हमारी आइस पे कितनी रीसेल बिकती है और वो कितने पे बिकेगी उसको भी जोड़ लीजिए। तो क्या आपने जोड़ा है ये? अब 22% सस्ता दिखा रहे हैं 3 साल में।
एब्सोल्युटली जोड़ा है सर, 3 साल इसलिए लिया है बिकॉज टिपिकली द फाइनेंसिंग पीरियड इज 3 years एंड हेंस आई हैव टेकन दैट एग्जांपल ऑफ 3 years. If you ask me, battery will not have to be replaced within a space of 3 years because we are assuming a running of 6,000 kilometers. 18,000 किलोमीटर में आपको बैटरी रिप्लेस नहीं करना पड़ेगा. It will last for a.
That is why I am telling you take 4 years, no?
Sorry?
That is why I am telling you take 4-5 years.
Right.
Because at that time you have to replace the battery for 65,000 rupees.
Sir, 22% is the difference in total cost of ownership over a period of 3 years. If I take it 4 years, it will be more than 30%. So if you look at, even if you include the battery cost along with the subsidy that the Government of India is providing, your EVs will still be cheaper in comparison to ICE vehicles with a 4 year of ownership.
After I think on the resale of battery there is no subsidy. When the battery will be replaced,
right,
there is no subsidy to the customer.
Absolutely.
So that cost is too much, no?
No, sir. So battery, first of all, battery cost, when there has to be a replacement, there are two things. If you look at OEMs like Mahindra for that matter, they have come up with some unique ways in which it can be done for the 3-wheeler space. If you see, certain battery cells or certain proportion of batteries will have to be replaced and the entire battery pack will not have to be replaced. So there is work going on in that direction which will not lead to a significant burden on the customer when he comes to replacement of the battery. So the entire battery pack will not have to be replaced. So from that perspective, there is work going on in that direction and we are thinking about this a couple of years down the line, not as on date. Because if you purchase a vehicle today, you may probably come up for replacement of battery 4 years later.
You are saying so, but I'm not satisfied at all. Thank you so much.
I'm sure you can take this discussion outside the hall as well. I'm completely running out of time. Thank you very much, Mr. Thakkar. And also, can I request Mr. Mukesh Sharma to please come up on stage to give our token of appreciation to Mr. Thakkar here. And we can surely have a round of applause here for a fantastic presentation. So please, yeah. When we have an audience full of questions, it's always a good sign that the conclave is moving in the right direction.